This week on the Orange Box Podcast, we talk about Switch 2 getting a surprising feature, Expedition 33's impressive milestone, game delays and ridiculous prices, and more. All of this tonight, but first, on to that beautiful bean intro. Welcome to the place where PC and console gaming talk combine. This is the Orange Box Podcast, episode 86. I am your host, the man who keeps getting sucked back into Dark Souls, Nathan, also known as the Frozen Gamer 87. And joining me as always, the man who is planning to dress as the Axon Siren for Halloween, Justin, better known as I am Zaracon. How you doing today? How's your week been?
Overall, not too bad. On Saturday, went to my uncle's. He had a Memorial Day cookout, just to have everyone together. It's been a while since I've seen family members, or at least it's been a while since I've gone to any sort of celebration with them. So it was good to see everyone since it had been a while. Actual Memorial Day, not too much. It was pretty quiet on that day. And not really too much has happened, though. I think it was Tuesday, I want to say. The internet at my house inexplicably went out. Not sure how it happened. I theorized that maybe something got cut again because that my neighbors, they had work done, and so sometime after the landscapers were there and doing stuff, then the internet was out, and so I was like, all right, that's not good. But tomorrow, we should have someone else, Verizon, come by the house to check and see what's going on. Hopefully that can be fixed. Hoping also that they can actually do something, since it's possibly going to rain, and what they have to do is outside, so I don't know if they might have to cancel it or postpone it, but we'll see what happens with that. So today I am fortunate enough that my sister was able to let me come and set up here, so yeah, got that going on. But other than that, it's really been a quiet week, I'd say.
Speaking of quiet. Sorry, I still had the alarm set for the kids. Alright, as far as my week goes, not a whole lot of events going on. We had a family get-together on Saturday for my nephew's graduation. My oldest nephew just graduated from high school, so we had that, and I don't think we really had anything else. I mean, I didn't have to work on Monday, so got a 3-day weekend, and that was nice. Ended up doing very little productivity-wise. I basically I spent a little bit of time on Saturday, Monday. Yeah, Monday. I spent a little bit of time doing some cleaning out of the garage, just getting some stuff put up in the attic, getting some stuff thrown out, getting some stuff set aside for eventually doing a garage sale. And so it's starting to look better. It still has a long way to go, but it's getting there. So it's progress. Otherwise, though, it basically just wasn't really productive at all. It was nice. Got to sleep in multiple days in a row. Didn't have to worry about music at church, so that saved trouble on that front. And I guess not really trouble, but it saved me from having to worry about practice or anything else. It was just relaxing for the most part. All I had to worry about was taking care of the live stream, but that was piece of cake. So I feel like there's something else I'm forgetting, but there probably isn't anything important. It's all been pretty basic. I guess on the work front, still no news yet on the new job. Basically have to wait for my boss to talk to his boss, and basically the only time that he thinks that it's important to talk to him face to face, but they're not always in the office the same days. And even though today they were both in the office, the higher boss was had the door to his office closed the whole day. So it was like he just didn't get an opportunity to talk to him. And so I'm just anticipating I'm not going to hear anything till next week. Particularly because usually my boss works from home on Thursday, Friday. It's possible he'll be in the office one of those days instead because of the fact that he had Monday off, but I'm really not sure what the plan is. And even then, like, I know his boss is not going to be in tomorrow, which means that even if he was in, unless my boss goes in on Friday, there's pretty much no chance that they'll get a chance to talk before next week. So it is what it is. I mean, I would like to, know one way or the other what the plan is, but in the meantime, I still have a job. I'm still working. It's not like I'm going to lose my job. It's just a question of whether I get to get promoted or not. So we'll wait and see. But I think that's pretty much everything. I really need to get my my mower taken over to one of the local stores to get repaired. Figure out what's wrong with it. It shouldn't be too expensive to fix, but I haven't gotten to it, and it probably is just going to end up being something that will wait until like Saturday. Because I basically have to put it in the back of my wife's car, because that's the only one that's big enough to hold it, because I just have a little Subaru Outback that I drive. And, I mean, theoretically I could fit it back there, but either way, I'm not going to have time before Saturday to take it since I have to work. So, that's pretty much it for me.
Okay.
All right, well, tell me about what you've been playing this week.
Well, still just one game, but that has been Expedition 33. Made some progress in the story. I've gone through Forgotten Battlefield, Monoko Station, Old Lumiere, and I've taken down the first Axon. Although I think I might have done it out of order, based on what I've heard here and there. But yeah, and so I'll say, without going to like spoiler stuff, Forgotten Battlefield, that was pretty. At first, it looked more intense than I thought it would be, just because of the background. But the boss fights, man, that was so satisfying. And then I was not expecting there to be a second phase on top of that. And then I thought about it, I said, this is just a Dark Souls boss fight now. And it partially reminded me of Pontiff Sullivan, just because there were the Shadow clones. I just thought,
very much so.
This is a very good fight. And the theme for that boss too. I mean, I didn't have time to pay attention to it, but I went back and listened to the soundtrack, and when I was listening to it, I thought, this is just so good right now. This is
I need to listen to that again. Which song was that?
I think it's called Duelist or something.
Oh yeah, that would make sense. Lines. It's named after the boss. That would make perfect sense. Okay, so yeah, I'll have to listen to that one. I've sampled the soundtrack here and there, but I haven't like listened from beginning to end. I've mostly just kind of had it on shuffle because I'd already finished the game, so I was just like, oh, I'll just listen to all of it.
Yeah, it's been good, and I feel like I might have potentially spoiled something for myself by listening to some of the later tracks, like the third one, but I'll just have to see what happens later on when I get to Act 3. But so of course, with Monoko Station, I have Monoko in my party now, and his theme was, I also love that so much. I was like,
yes,
okay, yeah, this is good here. I mean, this entire soundtrack has been phenomenal so far, and I've just been enjoying that. But as far as Monoko though goes as a party member, I still am not certain how I feel about him. I might have to play around with him some more. I mean, granted, I felt the same about Ciel, where I wasn't certain about her, but I learned how she played, and that helped me. But with Monoko, I mean, sure, you obtained like more skills the more Never on feet you collect, but right. I feel like you'd have to know way ahead of time about like what you want to have set as a skill to make the best use of his abilities. So I'm learning and trying to adapt there, but Yeah, it's been going well so far. And also, I meant to reply to your message.
Oh, I already
The
saw.
achievement that
I saw the video footage.
yeah. So here's the thing, um, Saturday and Sunday, I spent so much time because I was going to the overworld and I saw there was the one boss, which is the first part of the first
Oh, the gross
clip that I
TD.
sent.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like I first I was like, let me go face this guy, and I was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna face him, and I realized, okay, after a while, does he really just only have one attack? I mean, I'm barely doing any damage to him, but I'm realizing this guy only has one attack, so I was wondering, can I beat him if I just, parry and do some attacks here and there? And then I saw this online because I was wondering, why am I not doing that much damage to him? And I realized you're meant to face him later on in the game. However, there is a sort of secret way you can beat him. Whereas if you parry him, or if you take enough turns, then he will self-destruct.
Yeah.
And die. So I think it's I think it's 159 parries or dodges you have to do, because that's one thing I did was I kept failing this thing so much because you have to parry perfectly every time. And of course, I was doing this because I went to do the professional, the no damage achievement. So I said, all right, if I just parry him 159 times, that's fine. That shouldn't be so bad. But the problem is, it gets hard trying to like do it perfectly every time, and I keep getting hit. Like one time, I'm like, I have to start over again. Yeah. And so eventually I decided, you know what, I'm gonna try dodging and see if that works. And dodging did work. However, after I finally got it done and he did self-destruct, the achievement didn't unlock. And I was like, are you kidding me? I spent probably 4 hours trying to get that done, and there was no special achievement for that. But then later on, once I went to the later areas and I saw the chromatic greatsword cultist, that was a lot easier. And eventually I actually got a formula going where it's like, all right, I know what to do this turn, and so I can disable all the shields, and I can that way deal damage now. I can just parry everything here, do this and that, and I'm like, all right, cool, we got it going. This took me a while to get it right because there were times where I missed a parry, and so I got hit, and I was like, all right, gotta start all over again. But this was much more manageable, and the fact that I actually get to deal more damage definitely helped a whole lot. So that probably took me about an hour or so to get it done, but I was so happy to finally get that achievement done. I was like, yes, it's about time. But and also shortly after, I did face a mime, and somehow miraculously I was able to perfectly parry all of the hammer attacks. I don't know how I got the timing right, but I was like, I wish I had recorded this right now, because I just want to have that for posterity, just know like I finally got this right. But yeah, that's pretty much most everything I've done. I've done some more exploring. Oh, and I will say, with the boss fights at Eau Lumiere, that was something. I was not expecting that to go down, and that took me several tries, because I was not expecting the fact that I could lose a party member like right off the bat, and everything else that went down. But I mean, it was good. It was good. So yeah, I think I just have to go back and face the other Axon, and I'm not certain what else has to be done for Act 2, but that's what I know so far that I have to do. So I think after that, then I can go ahead and go to the monolith. But yeah, that's everything that I have that I can think of off the top of my head.
Well, congrats on getting that achievement. I definitely would not have had the patience to redo fights just for that, especially that fight, because like I could parry a handful of those attacks, like the regular versions of the greatsword cultist. I could parry those attacks pretty easily, but when it's like that when it's like that many more attacks in the sequence, I just was having issues. But I mean, that one wasn't overly hard. I think I beat that one on my first try. It just wasn't but I definitely didn't, do it like you did with no damage. Though I have a question. Why did you not use Mael's ability to remove the shields? Did you just keep
Oh,
forgetting you
okay.
have that? Or
No, okay, no. So here's the thing. I did use it for the first part of it, but then part of me was thinking I have a chance, especially when I was, I think, in Virtuoso stance. I was like, I'm in Virtual stance, might as well go ahead and deal extra damage. Or there was another reason, because I definitely did have at first, my main strategy was every time it's Mael's turn, go ahead, disable the shields, and, then just, then let, Monoko deal damage and then go on. But then eventually I was like, you know what? I feel like I'm getting close to the end, and I got a little greedy because that did actually cost me. Before this recording, there was an attempt beforehand that was like, all right, cool, I'm close, and I accidentally screwed up and didn't disable the shields, and because of that, it messed up my entire flow of everything. So I do agree that it definitely was important, and there's a little more to the clip because this wasn't the full fight, but I was mostly before that point just like disabling shields repeatedly whenever I could.
well, either way, you got through it without any damage, so good job. As far as what you have left to do, I think the only thing that you really like need to do before you go to the monolith is make sure that you build up Mael's relationship with Verso enough to where it's where basically you get the piano scene. Once you get after you get that scene, then you're good to go for going to the monolith. And I recommend
Okay.
don't worry about trying to do any other side stuff after that. Just because of the fact that most of the stuff is going to be a lot easier after you complete the monolith.
Okay.
Mostly just because of the fact that because you'll finish Act 2 and then you'll get that ability that makes it possible to deal over 9999 damage. So it's very important.
I'll definitely keep that in mind.
Good stuff, though. I cannot wait to hear your reaction to the end of Act 2. I'm not going to say anything about it. I'm just going to say that I am looking forward to hearing how you react to it. See if it matches how I reacted. Among other things. All right, so I'm going to start off by getting this out of the way, kind of going in reverse order, sort of, at least starting with the last game I've been playing, just because I referenced it in my intro, and that is, I guess, let me give a little bit of background here. So one of my friends at church, I talked to him previously about playing Souls-like games and everything, and he just had never given it a try. But he decided to try out Game Pass this week, and he's doing it on PC, of course. And he had tried out playing Another Crab's Treasure, and he's like, I love it. And it was it's his first Souls-like, and so he was obsessed with it, and he's like, I feel like I've missed out on this for so long. I told him, you got to play Dark Souls Remastered. And he said, it's on my list. We'll see. And I still had the code that I had bought to give out during Extra Life and just hadn't given out. It's like, I'll just give you the code for this. You can redeem it, and then when you're ready to play it, you'll have it. And so he had finished Another Crab's Treasure this past week, and I think he was like finishing up Doom: The Dark Ages as well. But so he just started Dark Souls Remastered the other day, and of course he's loving it. And him talking about it, I was like, I kind of want to try playing Dark Souls with a Dex build, because I hadn't done that before. So I started playing Dark Souls again. Now I will say already that I don't know how much I'm going to stick with this, and the footage that I have recorded, unfortunately I couldn't get like any of the boss footage recorded, because there's just like some glitches. I think it has to do with the Decky plugins that I have on the Steam Deck, but like basically almost none of the footage actually recorded properly. Like, it would record 5-6 seconds, and then it would just freeze on a single frame, and it would keep recording the audio, but nothing else. So basically, I have like times where I took down Black Knights with, you know, parry riposts over and over. I've taken down 3 of them so far, and I've taken them down with parries. And then, you know, boss footage, and none of it actually recorded properly. So I was able to get some footage recorded, but unfortunately none of it was, you know, boss related stuff, and it's not even the best footage. It's just me in the depths and dealing with enemies and end up getting myself killed. And there's definitely some glitches in how the footage recorded too. It has some weird artifacting and stuff, so I don't know what's going on with that. I think once all the Decky updates are installed, it should all theoretically fix the recording problems. But yeah, it's just, I haven't been able to get anything to record properly. And so I played more than I planned on just because of all the recording I wanted to do, just because I'm trying to get a good recording. But as of this point, I've basically just been doing the bosses in order, and I just beat Quelaag. So I don't know exactly how many hours I have in it, but yeah. But basically, it's been like, I started with the winged spear, because, you know, you can get that from the graveyard, and then after I got the halberd, I started using that, and I've mostly been using that. But I also, after getting the key I needed from him, killed the undead merchant and got the Ujigatana from him. And so that's been like my secondary weapon, which has been kind of fun, because I never really used it because I was never a dex build before. And I can't remember which class I'm playing as, but it's one that starts off with higher dexterity and has starts with a scimitar for the weapon, but basically just, you know, it started high dex, so that's the main reason I chose that. I figured I might as well go all in, even though in hindsight I probably could have just gone with the pyromancer again and then, you know, focused putting points into dexterity, but whatever, it is what it is. And so yeah, like, as an overall thing, I definitely have been finding that my muscle memory is not quite what it used to be. One thing that I have noticed is since I reinstalled it on the deck, the controls are what the actual default controls are for this version. Because I had changed around the controls simply because of the fact that I was used to, because I had originally played it on the Switch, or, you know, parts of it anyway. And so I got used to the button layout for that, and that basically all the buttons are reversed for the most part. At least, you know, A and B and X and Y are reversed in terms of their functionality. And so I hadn't really, I had always reconfigured the controls for Dark Souls and for Elden Ring and Dark Souls 3 to match how I controlled the game when I played on Switch. And so anyway, this is the first time that I played with the actual default controls, and I figured it made more sense to do that, especially because the default controls are much more how Dark Souls 2 controls, which, you know, I still plan to get back to and continue working on. So yeah, but we'll see how much I actually like really play this. Right now, I've just basically been, more than anything, it was just me trying to get usable boss footage and seeing, you know, how I could do with a completely different build, and it's been all right. I'm still not a big fan of it. I like the strength build so much more, because it's like, yeah, I can attack more, but I attack a lot weaker, and I do a lot less damage, so there's all that. Plus, of course, I can't use pyromancies, which means I don't have like an extra thing to help me when I just need a different damage dealer. So anyway, but that's all I have to say about Dark Souls. We'll see how much I actually play it beyond that. But just because I kind of wanted to mess around with a couple other games, I was just feeling a little antsy last week while I was, still working on Darksiders. I booted up a couple of games between the Steam Deck and and my laptop. One of those being Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I played that for a bit. Really just did some open world stuff. I think that when I jump it back into that, I just need to focus on the story and not mess around with the open world stuff, because while the open world stuff is good in and of itself, I just kind of feel like I'm wandering a little aimlessly, and I really want to get back to the story. So more likely than not, what I'll end up doing is when I really jump back into it, I'm just going to focus mainlining the story, and then after I have gotten through the story, then go back and do the side stuff as I feel the desire to do so. Because I have to be like, I want to play this stuff, because if I'm not specifically wanting to play it, then I just get kind of a little annoyed, because the open world stuff, like, it's good, but I also really want to get to the story, because I want to see what things they do differently with how they approach stuff. And like the core gameplay is really good, but some of the open world stuff just gets a little tedious for my taste. And this game just has a lot of it, so yeah, just general open world fatigue with that. But I also booted up Metaphor ReFantazio on the Steam Deck, and I didn't play super long. The biggest issue I was having with this one is mostly just, even though this one has similarities in its controls to Expedition 33, particularly in, you press a single button to get to the different attacks, powers, items, that sort of thing. It's still just different enough. Like I wanted to, either dodge or parry something, and of course I can't do either of those. And it's also just I went into an optional boss thing and I didn't survive, and so I just kind of was like, okay, I'm not gonna play anymore for now. It's one of those, half of me almost considers that when I get back into it, I might consider restarting the game, but probably won't. It's just, I have to get back into it, so I at least, I messed around with it for a bit anyway. And I mean, it's still a great game, I just wasn't quite feeling it at the time. And so I also tried the same thing with Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance, also on the Steam Deck. And once again, muscle memory just kind of messed me up. And I don't know, I wasn't really feeling it. Once again, it's kind of an open world fatigue thing, which that one's not nearly as bad as Rebirth in all the stuff that you have to do in the open world, because it's really mostly just collectibles. And I like collectibles. I enjoy that kind of thing, but I wasn't really feeling it, so I didn't play super long. Yeah, that's pretty much it with that. I did play some more Minecraft Dungeons with the kids. We did discover, thanks to my nephews, that we could actually turn down the difficulty on the levels, which was helpful. Of course, what ended up happening is, like, we're looking around trying to find the Enderman that we need to fight. And then my two younger kids both got tired of playing, and so they stopped. So my oldest and I kept going. We found the Enderman that we needed to find, and then the actual enemy we were supposed to fight, which was like I can't even remember the name of the monster, some specific monster that has the Eyes of Ender, which we need in order to proceed. So the footage here is just the stuff from last week, because I didn't record anything new, but so my oldest and I were able to get one of the Eyes of Ender, and we'll probably play some more each week and just slowly progress through it. I mean, the gameplay is still pretty solid. It's just, I mean, like, it's not as good as Diablo. That's just the reality. It just has, there are just certain things I don't like about how it's designed, particularly lack of abilities and that sort of thing. But anyway, so not much progress in that, but The main things that I played this week was Darksiders War Mastered Edition, which I did finish, and I didn't like go for all the achievements or anything. If I had decided to play it on hard from the beginning, I may have considered trying to go for all the achievements, because I know that there's one tied to hard difficulty, and of course once you get hard difficulty completed, it gives you the achievements for the lower difficulties as well. But since I didn't, I just didn't bother, and I didn't go back and try to go for any additional collectibles or anything, especially because I finished pretty late on Friday night. Yeah, Friday night. But I did end up, actually, no, I guess it was Saturday. I did end up jumping directly into Darksiders 2 right after that. Oh, and actually, real quick, going back to Darksiders 1, one thing I forgot to mention. So I ended up testing it out on my desktop. I didn't get 240 frames per second, but I was getting between like 113 to 120 at 1440p. Everything maxed out, looks great, runs great. But Darksiders 2, on the other hand, looks and runs even better. Maxed out settings on everything, 240 frames per second, pretty much the entire time. Which is surprising to me, because usually you'd think that a newer game would actually run worse, but no, it runs better. Basically, pretty much a locked 240 frames per second. I mean, like, it occasionally would drop a little bit, but I mean, still has well over 200 frames per second. So, with Darksiders 2, I don't know if you played this one at all, because I mean, originally, it came out on the Wii U, and of course you were a Nintendo fanboy. One of the reasons why I originally considered getting it on the Wii U, but I wanted to play the first game before I played the second game, and at the time the first game wasn't there. But anyway, so this game, of course, for one, it is more of a Zelda-like kind of gameplay, but the combat is a lot smoother than the first Darksiders game. Like, it has a lot of the fast-paced action that the first game has, but it's even faster paced, because Death is much more agile than War was. And of course, then it has the dungeons, both big full-on dungeons like you get in a Zelda game, and smaller ones. And with all of those, it also has, the really good combat. So you have your basic weapon, you have dual scythes that you wield all the time, and you can pick up upgraded versions of any weapons at any time, instead of having it just being like, oh, it upgrades as you use it. It's just, you get higher level stuff, different stats, and you can pick stuff with different perks and that sort of thing, different rarity levels, all that. And then your secondary weapon, you have a variety of different things you can get. You can get weapons that are like you can get hammers and axes and claws and fists, and depending on what type of thing you're using, determines how fast of a weapon it is and all that, how hard it hits, stuff like that. And then, different unique perks on each of the things. But yeah, it looks and performs great on my desktop. I didn't play it as much there, though, as I played on the Steam Deck. Now, the Steam Deck, I could only get it to do pretty much a locked 60. It wasn't... I had to modify the settings slightly. Ultimately, I just basically had to go with low shadows and turn off anti-aliasing, which on the Steam Deck screen, you don't need anti-aliasing. It looks great without. But, still pretty much getting a nearly locked 60 FPS. So I've been really happy with that, and that's where I played it almost exclusively, and it's just been a fun game, what I played so far. I think I only basically just finished Act 1 yesterday. Yeah, yesterday. And I haven't jumped back in since I was still trying to get that elusive Dark Souls footage. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Trying to think of what else there is to say about it. Oh yes, one thing that is interesting when I first was playing it on my desktop. Apparently, there's some issues with it having a high frame rate, just in terms of how it controls. Like, most of it feels amazing, but for some reason, when you're trying to climb vined surfaces, death doesn't move. And the only way to... I mean, I looked into it, and it's like, okay, this is a common problem a lot of people have. It just can't deal with that high of a frame rate for the animations. But you can fix it simply by if you hold left button or L1 while you're climbing, then it works fine. And I think it's like caps lock is the default on keyboard. So it's like, it's not really a big deal. I mean, yeah, okay, so I have to hold a button while I'm climbing. No big deal. Steam Deck doesn't have that issue at all, but I'm also running at a much lower frame rate, a quarter of the frame rate. So, yeah. I don't think there's really anything else to say. I will say the gun is way more useful in this game than it was in the first Darksiders. The first one, the gun was like just completely worthless. Like, it basically had... I think it was only useful in 2 boss fights. And the rest of the time, against regular enemies and everything else, it was just completely worthless. Yeah. So anyway, I've been having a good time with that, and I'm planning to stick with it. I'll probably be playing that more over Dark Souls, but we'll see. That's everything, though.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So I'm definitely glad that you enjoyed the first Darksiders enough to finish it. And now that you finished it, is it sort of everything you or is it everything you have hoped, since that I think you said this was your first time playing that game? Was it to your liking? I mean, I would say so. It's considered the fact that you're playing the sequel.
I enjoyed it a lot, and I mean, I'm enjoying the second one definitely more, but the first one was very good, and I enjoyed it enough to where I wanted to start the second one immediately, even though it was like 11:30 when I started. And then I played Darksiders 2 until about a quarter after midnight, but yeah. Maybe that was Friday. I don't know. My days are all mixed up in my head. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it was Sunday, actually. I think it probably was Sunday that I started Darksiders 2, because I know Darksiders 1 I was still playing on Saturday, because I was playing it up until just before we left to go to my sister's house. And then whenever it was that I finished Darksiders 1, it was late night, and I'm pretty sure it had to have been Sunday, because I'm pretty sure I went to bed earlier on Saturday because of the fact that we had church in the morning. And even though I don't always go to bed early, I still usually will. So anyway, it doesn't really matter. Point is that yes, I enjoyed the first game. I may eventually go back to it. If I ever decide to go back and try to get the rest of the achievements, which I might, then I would play on hard and then just work on getting everything I didn't already have.
And did you start hard difficulty with the sequel, or
no? Because there was normal, and then there was hard, and then there was definitive, and I was like, I'm not sure if I want to go all the way up to definitive on my first playthrough. And I've contemplated going there, but the way I'm looking at it is that unless it's a situation where I can be like, oh, I can just, play part of the game on the higher difficulty and then, be good to go. I mean, still get the achievement, or, finish the game on harder difficulty, even if I haven't played the rest of the game that way, then I probably just won't even bother.
And just because I'm very curious why this is the fix, what is the general purpose of L1? Like what's that button
That's just
normally
for
do?
using like shortcut attacks, like different abilities.
Oh, huh. Okay, so yeah, that is kind of weird that it would be,
Yeah,
I guess,
I
the
don't know
fix
why.
for
It's weird.
Quine.
I mean, like I could see it making more sense for it to be R1 because that's what you use for dodging and well, just for dodging, yeah. So it seems like that would be what you should be doing, but yeah, it doesn't work at all, and it's just holding down L1 while you move, and then it works, no problem. I will say, I
Very.
still don't like the fact that there's no sprint button. I mean, once I got War's horse in the first game, that definitely helped. But even the horse, like, yeah, it was faster, but it still didn't have a sprint function and just had, the occasional dash thing. And it's like, why can't you just give me a sprint function? And of course, I mean, well, you get Death's horse right at the beginning of the
Oh,
game for Darksiders 2. But it's the same exact thing where like you can use it in certain areas only and doesn't have a sprint function, just has, well, it'll have the short sprint, which is basically the same as, when you roll. So it's really not that much different.
okay. Um, well, I'll ask you a question, but I think I'll wait and see, depending on if you go ahead and decide to finish too, because I'm curious about where you would want to go after this game if you decide you want to continue. But
Well, I'm
definitely seems
definitely
like
going to
you.
continue because I really enjoy it. And I mean, the only reason why I even stopped playing it was just because my friend was playing Dark Souls and, and I got the itch to try it out myself. But no, I definitely want to keep playing this. And more likely than not, when I finish this, I would end up jumping into Darksiders Genesis because I think that's the third game they made, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong because I know Darksiders 3, I'm pretty sure Darksiders 3 was the last one they made. But if it's the other way around, then I'll do Darksiders 3 first.
Okay. Yeah, that actually wasn't the question I was gonna ask. I was like, all right, so which path would you want to take after doing
Yeah, I'm just
2?
doing
But
release
okay.
order. So whichever
Okay.
came out next would be the next one I would play.
Okay. And going back to Dark Souls, as you said before, you just can't escape this game. It's like that quote from The Godfather. Every time I think I'm out, they bring me back in. And you are once again on your 57th run of Dark Souls remastered. And it's definitely interesting, hearing that you went to try a dex build, and it's definitely interesting. I mean, of course, you don't get to you're not able to use your Zweihander
Right.
anymore, sadly. But I mean, you've definitely put in a good amount of progress so far, for something that you just jumped back into, already at Quelaag's domain.
Yeah, I
But
mean, realistically, I could have done Quelaag very early if I wanted to, because as long if you, I mean, since I always start the game with the master key you can get into the Valley of the Drakes, and then you can take the back way um, into there. And I actually, I think it was when I did my sorcery build. I'm pretty sure I did Quelaag before I did the gargoyles, just because. But yeah.
good stuff. Good stuff.
One thing that is interesting that I'd like to try someday. There is a mod available through Nexus Mods right now for Dark Souls with seamless co-op. So instead of it
Hmm,
just being like what you currently have in Dark Souls, you can actually play beginning to end in co-op, which I think could be a lot of fun.
interesting. Huh, that's
I mean,
that would be
I
interesting.
would never want to, like, if someone wanted to play the game who had never played it before, I say play it normally, and then if you want to do co-op a different time, then go for it. But it's much better to just experience the game as it is and then do co-op after you've already conquered all of it on your own. That's my opinion anyway. But yeah.
Very good. There we go. I'll definitely look into that. That's definitely interesting.
Yeah, good stuff. All right. Well, let's get into the news, and we don't have a lot of topics today. Um, well, it's not so much the number; it's not the most interesting week. It's been kind of dry, and so we're just kind of scraping the barrel for stories. But um, one of the first things I want to talk about is Expedition 33. Of course, we've been, we've had glowing praise for this game, and Justin here even changed his avatar to Expedition 33 on Discord. um, if you want, I could get you the Expedition 33 thing to put there instead.
Oh yes, yes.
But the Expedition 33, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Got 3.3 million sales in 10 days. 33. So it's just, yeah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a very, very amusing milestone. I mean, to hit 3.3 million within 33 days, yeah, it's very humorous. But I mean, the game definitely deserves it. I mean, the devs put so much work into this game. I mean, as you said, we've already praised this game for everything that's done, and I mean, so far after everything that I've played so far with this game, I have not been disappointed yet. I mean, even back when I was earlier in Act 1, I was like, all right, so far things seem to be going along pretty well, but I don't know, maybe the game's gonna let me down at some points. Finished Act 1, I was not let down. I mean, I was stunned, but I was not let down. Getting further into Act 2, I am still not let down. I'm still enjoying the game, and so, 3.3 million, I think that's great. If more people are playing this game, that's also great. And of course, we also don't know, how many people have in total played, because some people could be playing this on Game Pass. But, that would just mean more people are playing this game, more people get to enjoy the game, regardless. I just say go ahead. I mean, I even told a friend one time, like earlier, probably within, the first few weeks of playing this game, I said, I don't care where you play it, because he had a PS5 and he has Xbox and now he has PC. I said, I don't care where you play it at, but you need to play this game because it's just that good. So, I mean, hey, wherever you want to play it, just play this game. It's that good. But it's just amusing that after 33 days it hits 3.3, and I mean
10 days.
10 days afterwards at release. Yeah, a lot of threes going around. I mean, in the fact that the dev team is in totals, actually there are 33 members of devs that made the game. So it's just very, very humorous here. But hey, like I said, great that it's selling so well. I definitely hope that the devs put out more. I mean, they said they wouldn't put it out any DLC, but I look forward to seeing what they do next. And if they want to give us like a sequel, I mean, granted, I don't know how the game ends, but if they want to do more,
I think it would more have to be a different game. And I'm not going to say anything about how the game ends. It's like, obviously you can't do like Expedition 34 because that's, the expedition that came before them. And I mean, I guess technically you could do prequels and do one of the other expeditions, but honestly, I don't think they should.
No. And also going through like the journals, we already technically know how it ends. I mean, even the game itself, we already really failed if we're at 33.
Yes, indeed. Well, my thoughts on it, obviously game, it's well deserved. I'm glad that that's just sales, not counting, people who played their Game Pass and everything else. And, I'm thrilled because it's such an amazing game. And like, it's hard for me to say whether or not it will crack my top 5 of all time, just because it is a phenomenal game. And I think it is a 10 out of 10. But it's just kind of like that's not necessarily the criteria for making my top 5. It's like there are games that are my favorite games, and then there are games that are just amazing games. And it's an amazing game, but I haven't decided where it fits in my favorites. Because those other things also have a lot of, like nostalgia attached to them and so on and so forth. But regardless of any of that, I'm super glad that it's doing so well. I hope it continues to sell well because it is well deserving. And I cannot see any reality where this will not get Game of the Year, even at the Game Awards, as much as that is honestly not important. I mean, like, I still think it deserves that recognition, because it's just that incredible of a game. And, yeah, like, I don't care how good, like, Death Stranding 2 ends up being, because I'm sure it's going to be great. It's not going to surpass Expedition 33 in terms of just the overall package, even though it'll probably be great. And, of course, it's not going to be on PC this year anyway, so I won't be playing it this year. But regardless of any of that, yeah, I guess I don't really have any other thoughts on that, except that I just hope it continues to sell well.
Now, I'll just quickly add this because you mentioned it. I would say that for me, it easily gets on my top 5 games of all time. It has just done such a great job so far, and I was not certain if any game, well, only one game has come close, and I haven't finished it yet, so I can't say if it would or not, but Final Fantasy IV has been my favorite RPG of all time, and Final Fantasy IX is close to beating it. However, Expedition 33 has blown both out of the water for me, to the point where I'm like, this has easily become my favorite RPG now, and
Okay.
it's just been great. So yeah, that's just where I stand with it.
I will say I actually have halfway considered jumping into New Game Plus on it. I've thought about it a couple times, partially just because like I'm curious about like how it would be going back to Act 1, especially, for one being in the 90s, for all my characters, including 99 for Mael, but also just like not even, I mean, I guess in some ways it'd be like, okay, yeah, I can just decimate these enemies that previously gave me trouble, but even then, like even without that, I could check and see, okay, how do I do against this enemy and this such, if I try to work some more on just parrying the whole time. Anyway, we'll see. It's very possible that by the time next week rolls around, I will have jumped back into New Game Plus just for fun. Probably won't play super long, but because it's not like Dark Souls where it can be a short game if you know where to go with everything. But we'll see. Either way, amazing game. All right. Well, moving on to our next topic here. From VGC, an actor who was one of the original voice actors from Persona 4, the ever well-known Yuri Lowenthal, who, of course, is best known nowadays for his role as Peter Parker in the Marvel Spider-Man games. But in the original Persona 4, he played Yosuke Hanamura, and he has said, I mean, it seems like he's confirmed that the Persona 4 remake is a real thing by saying that he asked Atlas about returning for his role, and they told him no. Let me read the article specifically. And over here, 1 second. So in a post on Blue Sky, Lowenthal wrote, "For those who keep asking, no, I will not be returning as Yosuke for the Persona 4 remake. I asked, maybe I even begged, but they don't want me to come back." One thing I was just going to say about this as a brief comment before I let you share your thoughts, is that at first when I saw the name Yuri Lowenthal, I'm like, I mean, I know who that is, but I forgot that he was even in Persona 4. It's like, who was he? And I was thinking, was he Yosuke? And then And he's like, no, that can't be right. And then I was like, oh, it is Yosuke. And it's like, yep, I hear it now. Like, I've heard Yosuke's voice a million times because I played Persona 4 Golden 4 full times through, plus restarting it both on the Switch on PC, then on Switch, then on Vita again. I mean, not that I was like really playing at any of those places, but it's like, yeah, I've heard his voice a bunch in here. It's like, oh yeah, I definitely remember now. Yep, Yosuke is Yuji or Yuri Lowenthal. But yeah, anyway, so with of course all that being said, seemingly, confirmed that Persona 4 remake is a thing, even though it hasn't been officially revealed. And also, notice the post got deleted from Blue Sky. They have the screenshot here. Post not found. It may have been deleted. I wonder why. What are your thoughts?
It's definitely interesting. It definitely seems to more or less confirm that this, Persona 4 is getting a remake. I mean, we've talked about it several times in the past, but I think when you have a voice actor who has asked about reprising his role for the game in, a remake, it makes sense that, maybe this is a thing, whether or not Atlus or Sega is officially saying it one way or another. I think it's definitely coming. Now, I am curious as to why he wouldn't be recast in his role. If he did a good job, then I would feel like they would want him to come back. But I mean, I don't know if it's some weird studio thing, kind of like how David Hayter was not asked to come back for Snake in Metal Gear Solid 5, but I think there might have been some creative differences there as to why that was the
I think
thing.
it was just Kojima wanting Hollywood in there. I think that's all it was.
But other than that, though, I can't think of any reason as to why they wouldn't want him to come back. I mean, it's also, Yuri's done a lot of different work. He's done voice acting work with other things, so it's not like, I mean, unless maybe it's the fact that they feel like they wouldn't be able to afford him. But I mean, granted, this is also Sega we're talking about. It's not like we're just, it's not like it's a smaller studio that's asking, to bring him on. So I don't know why they wouldn't have him come back, but I still think that the remake is definitely a thing, unless they're doing something different, which even still I would find to be weird if this was the case. If it's only going to be something like a Japanese only audio track, which I highly doubt, considering the fact that they've dubbed everything, and even Metaphor has a dub. So I don't think it's that type of scenario. I mean, I could be wrong, but I just highly doubt it.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably most likely the reason they wouldn't be bringing him back is just because of cost. His value's probably gone up since he did, the Spider-Man games. I mean, it seems like that would be a big reason. I mean, of course, that makes me curious about whether or not Troy Baker would be returning it in his role, because Troy Baker played.
Yeah.
Why can I not think of his name for some reason? Kanji. He played that role, and I mean, you had actually quite a few of big names. I mean, you had Troy Baker, you had man, I am blanking on people's names today. Gosh, what is her name? It's on the tip of my brain. She's done a million things, including playing Abby in The Last of Us. Last of Us 2. Laura Bailey. That's right.
Yeah.
Laura Bailey. So yeah, I mean, Laura Bailey's in there. You have another person whose name I can't remember, but he's done he did Vash the Stampede, and he was a Power Ranger, and man, I just cannot remember anybody's name.
Oh, wait a second.
He took over the voice of Brawley after Vic Mignogna got fired.
David. Oh no,
Not David.
no. It's
Um, Gosh, what is his name?
Johnny Young.
Yes,
Bosch.
Johnny Young Bosch. That's who it is. Johnny Young Bosch. Um, yeah, he was in that. Um, and other people I can't remember some of their names, even though they've done other big roles. But point is that you have quite a few people who have become bigger over the years, and it's very possible they could end up recasting just about all of those. I mean, I know like with Persona 3 Reload, they recast the character who played Yuji, who was originally Vic Mignogna, and um, maybe Yuji wasn't his name. Why, man? I am so Ryuji. That's what it was. Ryuji. No, it's not Ryuji. No, Ryuji's Persona 5. Um, Junpei Iori, because one of the characters gave him the nickname Stupei. That's how I could remember it. Uh, but anyway, yeah. So I think that they could end up recasting quite a few of those. I mean, I think I'm not like I don't think Laura Bailey maybe has as big of a name behind her as Yuri Lowenthal would, just because Yuri Lowenthal did, Spider-Man. But actually, yeah, another thing about Laura Bailey was in that too. I mean, she was Mary Jane, the toxic Mary Jane. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I guess we'll see what happens one way or another. Um, I do think obviously that this is real. I mean, there's no reason to doubt it, especially now that the the Blue Sky post thingy got removed. So it's pretty obvious this was something that wasn't supposed to be said uh, by Yuri. But yeah, it's I'd say it's all but confirmed, and I look forward to actually hearing about it. I mean, of course, my big thing is, uh, well, I know that I'm gonna want to play this, but at the same time, I'm also afraid that I'm gonna buy it, and then I'm gonna be like, okay, I'll start playing it, and then I'll fall off because I've already played this game several times. So we'll see what happens. But either way, I look forward to it, and hopefully we'll hear about it sometime soon. I'd be okay with them waiting until next year. In fact, I would actually be really happy if they waited until next year, because I at minimum want to finish Persona 3 Reload and hopefully SMT5 Vengeance and Metaphor Refantasio before I jump into Persona 4 again. But if I keep replaying Dark Souls, we'll see if that even happens. It could be another 4 times through Dark Souls this year. No, I don't think that'll happen. But, yeah. Anyway, that's all I got on that.
cool beans.
All right, you want to talk about Switch 2's new feature?
Certainly. So, last Thursday there was a video posted by Koei Tecmo regarding their game Nobunaga's Ambition Awakened Complete Edition for the Switch, and was showing off the Switch Joy-Con being used as a mouse, since that's a strategy game and using a mouse is more preferable than using a controller for that type of game. And then a statement was made by, whoops, make sure I got the name right, by Michi Ryu, the producer, and he said the functionality is the same as referring to the mouse mode for the Joy-Con. The functionality is the same as the already released Steam version, allowing for left click, right click, and wheel operations. And then he was showing the controller move around. And they said for those who get used to it, operating via the shortcuts can make the game flow more smoothly. But then he plugged in a standard USB mouse, confirming that that regular mice can be used on the Switch as well as a mouse instead of using a Joy-Con. And everything worked as well, including the controller shortcuts that were used for the Joy-Con. And then the article from Video Games Chronicle says that USB keyboards and mice can also be plugged into the original Switch, but because not many Switch games feature keyboard or mouse support for their keyboard or mouse support, their use is limited. And because the Switch 2 includes mouse controls built into the Joy-Cons or Joy-Con 2, the number of games that support mouse controls and therefore the USB mouse is likely to be significantly higher. Yeah, and that is pretty much the key thing. And of course, so far, the only other games that we know so far that utilize it, mentioned talking about playing Civ 7 with a mouse, but the games that we know that are confirmed so far are, of course, Metroid Prime 4, Super Mario Party Jamboree Switch 2 Edition, and yeah, I think those are the only games that are mentioned here that are actually, besides, of course, Nobunaga's Ambition, that are confirmed to have mouse support. So I've got several thoughts on this. What are yours, though?
Well, one of the things I want to point out, something that I hadn't even thought of, which I think is a really smart move, is that the way that they handle the scroll wheel is the joystick on the side there. You can push it up and down to do the same function as you would get from a scroll wheel on an actual mouse, which I think is great. Because I was trying to think of how they would handle that, and that makes way more sense because you have up and down for the scroll wheel, but you also can have the clicking in like you would have for a scroll wheel, and then being able to use those buttons on the side could have additional functionality as well. So I can see a lot of ways in which this could actually be really cool. But obviously the big thing here is the fact that it supports USB mice. My big question is, like, to what extent is it going to support them? Because, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily want to use one in every game. Most games I prefer using a controller anyway. But for games like Metroid Prime, for example, I would love to use my USB mouse. I would use that over the Joy-Con any day. Because more likely than not, I mean, apart from any vibration function, which I could see being like the one advantage the Switch 2 Joy-Con would have, my mouse is way more comfortable. I have a bunch of buttons on it. If I could map different things to it, that would be fantastic. It's like if I could map basically all the functions that I would have on the Joy-Con mouse to a regular mouse instead, I would do it without taking a single, without any hesitation whatsoever. Like, it's just obvious to me that would be the right way to go. I could definitely see it being useful in like shooters, for example. Like that would be really cool for something like Doom: The Dark Ages, which I'm sure will be coming to Switch 2. Using a mouse in that. Granted, it's not going to be 60 plus FPS, most likely. I mean, I hope that they could get it to 60. But, it's not going to be 120 frames per second, which of course I can get on my actual PC. The one thing that makes me a little more hesitant of the idea of using an actual mouse is mostly just having one more thing to carry, to transport, like when I'm going places. And there are times where it's not going to be all that practical to use, but granted, those same situations, it's not going to be that practical to use the Joy-Con mouse. So it's really kind of either way, it's not going to be super practical. But I'm very curious to see what this ends up being like. And I'll have to look into what games support it and maybe try some of them out after I get my Switch 2. But I'm not expecting there's going to be anything like really big right at launch that will support it, because I don't have any interest in Nobunaga's Ambition and things like that. Really, the first game that I definitely would have interest in using it in would be Metroid Prime 4. But we don't even know when that's coming out yet, I don't think. I don't think we got a release date yet. So,
no.
We just know it's sometime this year. But yeah, I think that's all my thoughts.
So yeah, this definitely is a surprise to me, and I think it's great. I think it's a very actually pro-consumer thing, I must say. I mean, allowing consumers to actually have the choice, because I'll be honest, it definitely is a cool concept, but I think I would really, I mean, the way, even the when I saw it, I was like, all right, that's cool, but I don't know how comfortable it would still be using a Joy-Con as a mouse. So being able to actually use a real mouse, um, I think would be great to use. So people don't have to worry about buying anything extra. You just plug in the one they have, and as you said, if you could configure and map things to your mouse, especially if you have a special mouse which has a lot of different buttons on it,
Mm.
that could be a real game changer right there for things. Now, granted, to the extent that Nintendo allows customization, we don't know yet, because I mean, some people would say, well, that just provides an unfair advantage, especially if you're playing something like competitive online. Like, say if Metroid Prime 4 has a multiplayer mode. Not saying that it does, but if they did have something like that, some could say, oh, well, that just allows people to do this or that with controls. Which, I mean, sure, but at the same time, consider the fact that Metroid Prime 4 will already have multiple different controller settings already, and if you're using, the Joy-Cons with the gyro aiming or something like that, technically you have more of an advantage because you get to use the motion controls, which are more precise than just using the sticks. So while that argument could be true that the mouse has, more accuracy, everyone already has different controls already, so I don't think having customizable mice is going to hamper things too much on that end. But as you said, it will also be interesting to see how many games get support for this. I feel like definitely first-person shooters will have support. I think any game that probably would have it previously on the original Switch might have it on the Switch too. So if Metroid Prime Remastered gets a Switch 2 edition, I feel like that's going to have mouse support there.
Yeah.
If Minecraft gets a Switch 2 edition, I think that's going to have mouse support as
probably.
well. Especially considering the fact that it's got mouse support natively on PC until that's a game that has it. So I think that's definitely another possibility. Yeah, I'm not entirely too certain, but definitely any type of first-person shooter game, I feel like will get mouse support. Maybe not every game, but I feel like a lot will have support. And I mean, this isn't something that's necessarily too new. I mean, Xbox has had mouse support for certain games here and there, and I think maybe even a couple of PlayStation games as well have had mouse support. But I know primarily Xbox has had the most support for consoles so far. But yeah, I mean, I think this is pretty good. Although this definitely was a new thing I learned, that the original Switch had actual, limited mouse and controller support, so keyboard support. So that's something, you learn something new every day there. But yeah, that's everything I have to say regarding this.
Yeah, the one thing that I think could potentially make the Joy-Con mouse better is if people start doing shells for it to make it actually more comfortable to hold. Yeah. Because if I could get something like that, that would just be like, yes, immediately I want to buy that, because I can't imagine holding that little tiny Joy-Con comfortably for any length of time. So.
And one thing I'm actually now thinking about, I'm wondering is, do you think Bluetooth mice might be supported? Because I mean, while in tabletop mode, it would probably make a lot of sense to have a wired mouse, but if you're docking it to the TV, unless you have a long USB cable, it's not going to be really it wouldn't make much sense to have a wired mouse in that scenario. So in that case, I would say using a Bluetooth mouse would make more sense. So do you think that there would be support for Bluetooth mice, or do you think it's just gonna be wired?
I think the only way there would be support for Bluetooth mice if it was specifically like one that had a Bluetooth dongle included. because that's really the only way I could think of that being a way that would work normally.
That makes sense.
But I guess we'll wait and see. This is kind of a side note, but the idea of foreign controllers working with the Switch 2, and mice in this case. I'm wondering, because I think it's actually very possible, if you could use, like, for example, a Wii U Pro controller with the Mayflash adapter, because I have a Mayflash adapter for my Wii U Pro controller, which is how I used it originally on PC. And I used that controller on my PS3 with that adapter. But it was just basically recognized as a PS3 controller. I haven't tried it on the actual Switch, but like I pulled out my Wii U Pro controller and that adapter recently so that my kids and I could play we could play Minecraft together on my PC, and mostly it was because of the fact that wired, it wasn't really working properly, and like the default wireless Bluetooth connection wasn't working properly, but with the adapter it worked just fine. And I think that that's a potential idea. I mean, that's something I want to try doing, because, like, of course, next week I'm supposed to be getting my Switch 2 as long as everything goes according to plan, assuming it arrives when it's supposed to. And I was thinking, okay, well, I'm going to try to take that Friday off and then play some Mario Kart with the kids. But I don't, even though the Switch 1 controllers do work with the Switch 2, you obviously can't attach the Joy-Cons because it's a different system. So the only way to connect them is with a wired thing. So you have to have a charging grip or some other, way that you can connect it through USB in order to sync them up. And like I can, easily do that with the Switch Pro controller because it has the USB plug. So I just plug it in, sync it up, and we're good to go. I can easily do it with, obviously I'll have the Switch 2 Pro controller. We'll have the Switch 2 Joy-Cons that come with the Switch 2 itself. But then fourth controller, basically, I mean, I went ahead and ordered a generic charging grip so that I could plug it in if I need to, if the Wii U Pro controller doesn't work. But I don't know. Anyway, it was just kind of a random side thought, but I think theoretically, like, if they could make some of these things work, even if it just recognizes, like, if it recognizes the mouse as a mouse, which theoretically it should be able to if they actually natively support it, even if it's just a generic mouse, and if they can recognize other controllers as a Switch Pro controller, which I know that they can do. I know that there's adapters to use like PS4 controllers and stuff like that on the Switch. Theoretically, I should be able to use my Wii U Pro controller, which would be great because it literally barely got used. I got my Wii U, and I used the gamepad the majority of the time. And so my Wii U Pro controller has basically just been sitting in a box. And it's a great controller with an 80-hour battery life. Might not have that anymore with as old as it is, but it would be great to be able to actually really make use of it for some games. So, now we're using it on my laptop, when we play Minecraft Dungeons, and it works great for that, but yeah. It's a shame that I got so little use out of that controller, and now I have the opportunity to make use of it again. Okay. So, going to kind of combine a couple stories because they're all related in some ways, basically just because to the current state of gaming. So one of the things that we haven't talked about yet is that Grand Theft Auto 6 got delayed to May 2026, which of course opens up room for other games to actually release this year and everything else. Some people have said that it got delayed so that it could have a chance at Game of the Year over Expedition 33. But beyond that, we also have some other ridiculous things like I guess Marathon had it was discovered that a lot of the artwork they were using in the game was stolen from somebody, and the creator was able to basically prove it, and Bungie more or less confirmed that it was stolen and that person's no longer with the company. But that combined with the current state of people's hype around the game has led for them to basically stop marketing it for the time being, and we're expecting, more likely than not, there's going to be a release delay imminent on that. And then, as another semi-related thing, some fans of Borderlands asked Randy Pitchford, who's the main creator behind it, who's basically the head in this case behind Borderlands 4, asking him, basically saying, please don't let this be an $80 game. And Randy Pitchford's comments were essentially, if you're a true fan, you can make it work to spend $80 on this game. So kind of combining all those, it's just more or less a statement on the current state of AAA gaming and where we are. And so, what are your thoughts? You don't necessarily have to like go into each individual topic in detail, but just kind of like an overall look at where things are with these types of situations.
Yeah. The AAA sphere is just so bloated, for lack of better words, which I think is really one of the key problems that it has, just because, the budget's inflated, the demand, or not the demand, but the ambition is inflated. Everything is just so big that it really just cannot contain itself. It's just been a bubble that's been growing and growing and growing, and at some point something's gonna break. And so, of course, with the budget, the price is also potentially, well, not potentially, it is inflating. And as with Borderlands 4 possibly being an $80 game, I'd say that's likely. Now, delays aren't necessarily a bad thing in of themselves. I feel like if a game does need more time to be polished, that's fine. I would rather have a game be released in as well a state as it can be than having a game be released as total garbage on launch. I mean, sure, you could always say, oh, we can just fix it post-launch, but I think that's a poor mentality to have, because you don't go to a restaurant and you order something and, it's garbage, and say, oh, we'll just fix it after you take a few bites. We'll add in, some extra seasoning or something to make salt. It taste better. But you don't go back in other aspects and fix after launch. So I think having the mentality of we'll just fix it after release is no terrible thing to have. So delaying something to make it better I have no problem with that. Of course, I feel like as a result of that, and of course, sometimes you can't predict delays. Some things will happen that will cause something to be pushed back. I'm not saying that's a problem. However, some things might be released or announced too early if you're going to go ahead and have something be delayed, shortly thereafter. That's something I do have a problem with, where I feel like a game should be announced within 1 to 2 years of it actually being released, so that way there's not a long period of time of people wondering, so where's this game at? Where's this game at? Where's this game at? 5 years pass. So where's this game at? Game gets announced. It has a release date, or at least release year. And I'm like, all right, cool, that's awesome. I can't wait to see it. Game gets delayed again. And so you're going nearly a decade from when the game originally was announced, and still nothing. I mean, how long has it been since Elder Scrolls 6 was officially revealed? Like,
I want to say that was 2019, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, so it's definitely been a while. I mean, and don't get me started on Beyond Good and Evil too. I mean, that game is probably infamous for, for forever being uh for forever being delayed, or just going past the original announcement. So I have no problem with a game being delayed, but if you're going to be delaying something that has had a long, or has been announced like way in advance, like years ahead of time, I think you should have just announced the games much later. And I mean, it's not like you can't build hype around these things. I think in this current day and age, you're able to do more with less. I mean, in older times, you had to do a lot of marketing. You had to get stuff prepared. You have to get statements, billboards, print. You had to do a lot of stuff. Gaming magazines had to put out stuff like that. But nowadays, you can just post a video or something. You could just like post a social media post and it'll take off. I mean, because you don't necessarily need to. You don't need to put in so much money, and that's another thing with marketing. Like marketing, that inflates these AAA budgets, and it's why it's why these games caught. Well, part of it is why these games are as expensive as they are. I mean, to develop, of course, and not to mention that, of course, the game prices themselves are more expensive. But yeah, it's definitely ridiculous. And going to what Randy Pitchford said, while I think people who really, really, really love a game will do whatever they can to pay for the game, I don't think that's a message you definitely want to send. And especially as a CEO, like, you're pretty much saying, hey, what's the matter? You broke or something? You can't afford my game? Like, that's just a poor statement to have. And I mean, there's something similar. I mean, it's not directly the same, but I got reminded of this through work. Just like talking about how the CEO of Unity, how essentially was, talking about the customer, that customer in this case being the devs who use the Unity engine, saying like they're very pure, very brilliant people, but sometimes they're just idiots, just because of the fact that they don't want to like focus on monetization in their games for that point. And that was part of what led to Unity's downfall. So I mean, Randy is not doing any favors here, even if he doesn't have any say in the prices. You don't say that people, hey, if you want to play the game, just find a way to make it work. Like, that's the worst answer you could have possibly said. I mean, yeah, even if there's a game that I really want to play, I really decide if it's something that I want to spend that much money on. And sometimes frankly, the hard limit for me is 60. Unless there's like a deluxe edition, collector's edition, I'll spend more than that. But like 60 is a hard limit for me, and I have to find a good reason to justify spending that much. So if you're gonna tell me if I'm really a fan of something that I should spend more, that's really just a wrong message to send. And I mean, of course, I have seen some people's statements regarding this, about they're either not gonna buy the game, they're gonna resort to other methods to play the game, which I'm like, you're really damaging the enthusiasm that you have that people will have for this game, because they might skip it, or they they might just like pirate it or something like that. But some people just need to think before they speak, especially, or rather, if you are in a certain position, you definitely need to think about what you're saying, because you reflect the company overall. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that also would just be considered a part of the entire AAA sphere, because sometimes, I mean, here and there, you have people within companies who will say something like, oh, if you don't like something, then just don't buy it, bro, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then when people don't buy it, it's like, wow, these trolls really messed us up. Now our game's failing. It's like,
Yeah.
you told us not to buy the game. Make up your mind. So, yeah, it's definitely a lot going on in the AAA sphere. And I mean, I feel the best thing about nowadays with gaming, though, is the fact that we are not reliant on AAA games. There are indies that are doing a great job. And we have AA games that definitely are on the same level of quality, and sometimes even higher than that, than AAA games. I mean, we've got, case in point, an excellent AA game called Expedition 33, which is peak. And it's, you know, it's not a major, it's not made by a major studio, you know, it's made by a smaller dev team, and that game cost $50. They sold it for $50, and you know, these other companies want to sell their games for $80. Well, I'm sorry, $70, $80, might even do more than that. I mean, analysts have been predicting whether GTA 6 will cost $100.
Right.
So we're at the point now where we don't need AAA devs to make games that you could say are high quality, because it definitely can be done now at this point. And I guess sort of on that note, one of the reasons why I possibly think GTA 6 was delayed could be because of the fact that they want to see if they could, well, I mean, they definitely could get with 80, but they might, I feel like they're not ready to hit 100, but they might try to tease $90 for GTA 6. They might try it, and that's partially why they wanted to wait and see if $80 could be, if enough people stomach it for this year, and if so, they might release it, say, hey, GTA 6 is gonna be, it's coming out now, $90 by the way, but it's coming out now, here you go guys. But yeah, it's like I said, the whole thing is just a complete mess. While not every AAA game is necessarily bad, or you know, there's not a lot of, it's not that there's always something wrong with a AAA studio. A lot of the problems are, there are just a lot of problems, a lot of gunk. But as I said, fortunately, we do not have to rely on AAA studios to get AAA quality. We're definitely getting that without them, and I feel like eventually we could get some sort of crash or implosion. But I think I think outside of that sphere, gaming will still be thriving in one way or another. But I guess that's a long-winded way of my general statements regarding everything.
Yeah, I mean, just the way that everything's been going with these different aspects of this discussion. You know, the whole thing with the potential $80 price point for Borderlands 4, and Randy Pitchford saying you can make it work if you really want it. I mean, it's just completely out of touch. And granted, that is, you know, that's just where people are. And it's funny, you know, he gave the example. He said, oh, well, you know, I was fresh out of high school and I, you know, working minimum wage job at whatever it was. And, you know, I had to, you know, save up money so that I could buy this game. I made it work so I could play it. But I'm thinking, yeah, but when you're fresh out of high school, you're probably not living on your own yet. You probably don't really have bills to pay. And so you doing it fresh out of high school when you're probably still living with your parents, not dealing with any of the actual like regular expenses that normal people have to deal with. Yeah, of course, for you, $80, it was still doable. But you're also comparing completely different situations, you know, where an $80 game back then, especially, I think he might have said it was a Sega Genesis game or something. And it's like you had the actual physical cartridge with like an actual board inside of it and all this other stuff. Like the the cost to make the actual cartridge was considerably higher than it is to print a disc today, never mind just giving a digital code, where it's literally, there's no cost in that whatsoever. And I mean, these budgets are just, they are so bloated. And then they want the consumer to make up for them not being able to properly balance their budgets. Meanwhile, you have a game like Clear Obscure Expedition 33 that has a small development team, uses Unreal Engine 5, uses it well to where it's actually well optimized, and it's an unbelievably incredible game, and it was only $50. They completely blew every other game this year out of the water. And don't get me wrong, like, I know that there's going to be other great games this year. I firmly believe Death Stranding 2 is going to be an excellent game, knowing how great Kojima has been at the games he's made and how great the first game was. I'm sure Ghost of Yotei is going to be great. I'm sure there's going to be lots of great games this year. But the reality is that the vast majority of them have such bloated budgets that they need to start working on controlling how they're spending for these games. If they would just do that, they wouldn't have to charge so much. Or even if they have to have the bloated budgets, they could just charge less and they'd probably sell more copies, which would ultimately make up for getting less per copy. I mean, I wish we could see these things happen the way they should. And I am not someone who's pro $80 games, period. Like, if it's a collector's edition, deluxe edition with a bunch of extra stuff, okay, that's one thing. But for the base game, it should never be that much. There's just no reason for it. I mean, if people want to, buy it and they're buying a bunch of DLC, buying expansion pass and so on and so forth, and it's going to have a bunch of extra content, then okay. But it's a whole different story between that and paying $80 for the game on its own that's not going to include any DLC or soundtracks or anything else. It's just ridiculous. And then you have situations like what's going on with Marathon. You have stolen artwork, which is used prominently throughout their trailers, their environments, everything else. You have a game that nobody ever wanted in the first place. Or, well, I shouldn't say nobody wanted. Nobody asked for. Nobody asked for this. You're taking an old IP and completely reworking it something completely different that nobody asked for. Instead of, realistically, I think they would have done way better if they simply just took the original Marathon games and completely remade them. Use all of the great gunplay and everything else that it looks like it probably has, and based on how Bungie typically does with their gunplay in Halo and Destiny, I'm sure that it probably feels great, but the problem is that it's a style of gameplay that no one asked for. That's not even a popular style of gameplay. It's something that people just don't really want. The player numbers that they had in their alpha were abysmal. I think it was around, I want to say maybe less than 5,000 people or less than 7,000 people. It was really, really low. And it just wasn't encouraging. And then you have this scandal added on top of it. It's looking very likely it's going to be delayed. Could very well be completely canceled. And you think about it, Sony spent $3 billion, or $3.6 billion, I think is maybe what it was, to acquire Bungie. Jim Ryan saying that this is going to be a better investment than Activision for Microsoft. And Bungie has just been having failure after failure after failure, mismanagement, poor morale, just all sorts of issues. It's yes, they got the final shape out, which was great. Basically, all the Destiny fans loved it. But then since then, they're just having continuous issues with Destiny. They're having issues with Marathon and the lack of interest in it. And they also were the reason why Sony canceled like The Last of Us Factions and probably numerous other live service games. It's just the state of these games is crazy. Now, I mean, like the GTA 6 thing. Okay, them delaying it till next year, of course, getting out of the way of Game of the Year Expedition 33, but some have theorized, and we have yet to see whether that's going to be the case. Maybe they're going to try doing day and date on PC instead of delaying it like they usually do, because with as much time and money as they put into this, even though it's undoubtedly going to be a huge moneymaker, probably going to make money for years and years and years to come, if they release it on PC's still the biggest platform for GTA, and they could very easily make a ton more money all at once just releasing it on PC. Not that I'm going to buy it, because I have zero interest in it, just like I had zero interest in GTA 5. Not that I'm expecting them to actually do that. I think they'll probably still do the delayed release just because they know they can get away with it, and they know that people will double dip. But it's just the current state of AAA gaming is it just needs to change, and I think there needs to be a crash. I think that these companies need to realize they need to stop it with these ridiculous budget games. They need to go back to doing AA games again. I think Microsoft is doing a lot better on that front because they have such a variety of different studios releasing a bunch of different games. I mean, now that they've had time to cook, they've had a lot of bangers this year, and the year's not even over. They still have games coming out later in the year. But, Sony, they basically just completely abandoned doing AA games. They used to have things like Gravity Rush and other smaller games, Tearaway, and I mean, I think the only thing that really you could say fits that AA spot at this point is Astrobot. And even that, I mean, it's sold pretty well, and it was probably much lower budget than the other games they put out. But considering the number of PlayStation consoles out there, I don't think it sold very much. I think it sold a little over 1 million, if I remember right. It might be up higher than that. I hope it would be. But, that one's probably going to be on PC. Well, it's going to be on PC. It's just a question of when. Could end up on Nintendo Switch, which would be hilarious. Of course, it would be funniest if it came to Xbox, but I think that's much less likely. It's just the way that things are going, this crash is coming. And it's only a question of when. And I hope it happens sooner rather than later, because there just needs to be some major changes. But I will say, at least on the plus side, regardless of whether the crash happens or just continues to become more and more expensive, we on the PC side will never run out of games. Especially you, because you have like 600 or 700 games in your Steam library alone. I mean, like, I have a lot. I don't have anywhere near that much, and that's completely ignoring my consoles that have stuff on them that I still want to play, especially the Vita and 3DS. But yeah. Anyway, that's all I got.
Very good. Very good.
All right. Well, I don't have any listener topics tonight. Do you have anything you wanted to discuss?
No, nothing from me for this week.
All right. So it looks like we're going to actually have a shorter episode for a change. But let's go ahead and get into our recommendations and dissuasions. So start us off.
All right. So I've got several different recommendations. So my first recommendation is, and actually several of these are actually related to the same thing. This is for the gross tets fights in Expedition 33. So the first thing I want to say is to have Minoko in your party during that fight, because there is an ability that he can get, and it's only available in that fight. So you will miss it if you don't have him in the party when you do that fight. I think there's a variant that you can face later on that I've heard.
Yeah, there's a second time you can fight one.
Okay. Well, if you miss
it's
it
in an
fight,
optional area, but yeah.
Okay. So if you miss it here, you can go again later on. But I feel like just so you don't forget, go ahead and have him in the party this time around, so that way you can get that ability for him. Also, if you want to do the secret, the secret method of defeating him, you feel free to dodge in the fight if you feel like you can't get the parrying down right, because it definitely can be tedious. And I mean, my trigger finger got so tired to the point of, repeatedly trying to parry, that I actually had to hold my controller with my thumb and just do this instead. That way I could, keep going with the parrying. But if you don't feel like parrying, you can definitely dodge. It works as well. So you don't have to worry about, just only doing parrying. Additionally, just know that as things speed up, after the first jump that happens, there is a slight delay, and it kept tricking me every time, and I kept forgetting about the delay, and that threw me off, and I had to keep redoing the fight. So just know that after the first bounce, there's a slight delay before he bounces again, and then after that, you'll go back into the regular rhythm, and you can automatically feel when things speed up there. So just keep a note that there is that delay after the first bounce. And then this one's actually off topic, but my final recommendation is just to make sure, and I mean, I've sort of said something like this before, and this is sort of a, something you'll definitely hear generally, but try to, live without too many regrets, or try to do things that you wouldn't regret later on in life, or know that your relationships won't have any regrets. I feel like with some things that I've seen, there are people who just didn't have enough time to do things they wanted to, or that they they lost people, or things like that, or they just feel like, wait, I wish I could do more things, or something like that with someone. Just try to make sure you do the most that you can with the time that you have. And especially since, tomorrow's not guaranteed for any of us, it's best to live the best that you can. So that way you won't have any regrets, or, maybe someone else might not have regrets because you couldn't do something with them. But, yeah, that's everything I have for recommendations.
All right, good stuff. Well, I'm going to recommend specifically with Darksiders War Mastered Edition on the Steam Deck. So last week I had said using Proton 9.0.4 fixes all the problems, and it does prevent crashing. However, it also makes it so that all the cutscenes just automatically skip. So if you want to be able to watch the cutscenes at all, don't use that version of Proton. I tried a couple other ones. I haven't found anything that works properly. Basically, either you get the cutscenes and they have audio sync issues, or you don't get the cutscenes. So, and then you potentially have the game crashing on you. When I did it on my desktop, I didn't have those problems at all. But that's, running on Windows rather than on Linux. So it is what it is. I mean, I don't feel like I missed anything like so dramatic to where I'm like, oh man, now I need to go like watch all the cutscenes on YouTube or whatever, even though I could. Thankfully, Darksiders 2 doesn't have that problem at all. But with Darksiders 2, if you are playing on PC with high frame rates and you are having problems climbing vines, use the left shoulder button /L1, or equivalent, which I think is caps lock is the default on keyboard, so that you can actually climb, because otherwise you'll be stuck very early on because you just can't move. So, yeah, it's just kind of funny that having such a high frame rate would cause a problem like that. Just apparently the animations can't keep up with that many frames per second. with 240 frames per second.
Suffering
but
from
yeah.
success.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think that's everything. That's everything I have written down anyway. So, all right, give me your dissuasions.
All right, my dissuasion is going to be do not tackle the Gross Tet fight if you're trying to go for the professional achievements, or at least don't use the secret method of beating him, because, as I said, I used the secret method. It didn't work. I didn't get the achievements, and I don't know if it's just that fight in particular, or if you use the cheating method that it nulls, if it nulls, counting towards that. So I would just say in general, just skip him. And of course, if you do skip him, just because you don't want to do the secret method, that's fine, because you aren't supposed to be fighting him anyway at that point anyway. So you can always come back later to fight him, but just don't bother fighting him for the achievements, if you're specifically if you're trying to use the cheat method.
Yeah. Stuff. All right, my dissuasion is in Dark Souls Remastered. Well, just Dark Souls 1, period. Do not go into the depths without having at least one purging stone on hand. Mostly because, I should say, unless you completely skip the depths early on and go back there once you have the ability to warp, in which case then it's less of an issue. But if you don't, then you end up having to trek all the way back in order to buy a purging stone, and one of those is 6,000 souls, which early in the game is not always as quick to come by. So, yeah. Considering the fact that in the depths you can very easily, if you're not careful, if you don't know where you're going, or if you miss a jump, fall down into the lower parts and then get cursed, you want to make sure you have a purging stone handy. And, yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say, because it definitely pissed me off, and I lost around like 9,500 souls, which, late in game is nothing, but for that early in the game, it definitely could have given me at least one full level up, so it was a bummer. But yeah, that is what I have, I think. I guess I would say, to go along with your dissuasion about the Gross Tet or TT or whatever he's called, just don't fight him until later in the game. Yeah, you could go for the method of just dodging or parrying his attacks until he self-destructs, but realistically, you're better off just waiting until later in the game to fight him, especially because there eventually comes a point when you can basically one-shot him. So it's like, yeah, that's a little easier, and he's annoying otherwise. I think he was one of the last bosses I beat. I beat the super bosses before I beat him, just because he was annoying. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's everything I have. All right, so where can people find you?
They can find me on my channel. I am Xeracon. That's IAMXERACON. So youtube.com/@IamXeracon. No new content from me this past week. As I said before, I feel like the next video is going to be sort of a mostly full-on review of Expedition 33, but that, of course, will come after I finish the game. Still, of course, in Act 2, probably near the end of Act 2, and I don't know how long Act 3 is going to be, but so maybe it'll come out in a few weeks, I'd say, maybe, give or take.
I don't think it's going to be that. Well, I guess it would depend on whether you decide to do all the side stuff before or after you finish the story. Because if you do all the side stuff before, then it will take you much longer, theoretically. If you don't, if you save a lot of the side stuff until after you beat the story, you could probably be done with it within the week without too much difficulty. Because you're basically right near the end of Act 2. All I will say is that you have the second Axon, and then you have the Monolith. And the Monolith is the end of Act 2. When you finish the Monolith, that's the end of Act 2. Or, well, there's some cutscenes after you finish the Monolith, and then it's the end of Act 2. But Act 3 is actually very short. It's basically just, and this, not spoiling anything, but if you think of a game like any of the Final Fantasies where you have the final disc of the game, and that's basically what it is. It's like there's not much of anything there. It's just basically going into the final area, all the stuff leading up to the final boss, and then the final boss. And then after that, you can do any of the other stuff if you want to. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to, trust me, that's not spoiling anything. That's just letting you know Act 3 is very short.
Okay.
All right. Well, for me, I'm just going to say right now, I have not been producing any new content lately. But if you want to check out any of my existing content, there is my YouTube gaming channel at the Frozen Gamer 87. I'm not sure when I'm doing more stuff for that. It's kind of, I have a lot of stuff in my head that I want to work on. It's just a matter of finding the time to work on it. There's the channel for the podcast where you can watch the video version of the podcast every Friday at 7 a.m. Central Time, barring any technical issues. Similarly, it's also on Rumble as well. On YouTube, it's at the Orange Box Podcast. On Rumble, it's not a custom URL, but you can find it just searching for the Orange Box Podcast. There is the audio-only version of the podcast, which comes out every Friday morning at 12 a.m. Central Time, barring any technical issues. And that is on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, Deezer, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and basically any major podcast platform where you would expect to find audio podcasts. And if you would like to, or actually, I guess one last thing is that, or let me back up. Then if you would like to contact us, you can reach us by sending an email to the orangeboxpodcast@gmail.com. You can also send us a message or a tweet /X on Twitter /X at the Orange Box Pod, or you can comment on the video version of the podcast. Lastly, I do also have a YouTube cooking channel called Not Authentic But Delicious. That's YouTube at NABD Cooking. And there is nothing new right now. Really, when it comes down to all of these channels, with the exception of the podcast, I have just been prioritizing other things over that. And I don't know when I'm going to start doing more stuff with any of these channels. But I think right now it's kind of just, there are more important things in life, and considering the fact that I'm not earning an income from this, and it wasn't growing enough to where I was going to be earning an income anytime soon, I've just decided to kind of put them on the back burner, and obviously that's been kind of the case for a few months now. So that's just what it's going to be until I'm ready to start putting stuff together, and then hopefully I'm going to kind of have like a consistent flow of content, which I'm hoping to be, especially on the gaming channel side, more commentary based, with the occasional comparison and that sort of thing like I've done previously. But there's just a lot of other more important things in life right now, and I totally respect the hustle for the people who actually have time to do it, who put that time in and everything else, but my life, it's just not really working for me right now. So it's at least on hold for the time being, and I'll come back to it when I'm ready to come back to it. And I guess once I figure out my balance of everything else a little bit better, then I'll hopefully start having some content consistently again. But yeah, I think that is everything. So, last chance. Any final thoughts?
No, sir.
All right, well, I am the Frozen Gamer 87. That is I am Zeracon. We are the Orange Box Podcast, and until next time, play something from your backlog. Orange Box Podcast, out.